So I hear a lot of clients and even advisors too talk about average returns, which is one of the most misleading conversations to have because the idea of 7% average returns, for example, can mean a number of different things. And here's what I mean by that. There's an investment concept called the sequence of returns, and this pertains to the order in which the returns come within a given period of time. Here's an example. Here's a 15-year run, and we'll use a $1 million starting point or a $1 million investment account balance. And this 15-year period is between the years of 2000 and 2014. Okay, and here are the S&P returns during that 15-year run. So with a $1 million starting point, after this 15-year period, the client is going to end up with $1.8 million in his investment account. Okay, and the reason I'm showing you this period of time is that if you notice in this particular sequence of returns, it starts out with three negative market returns right off the bat, 2000, 2001, and 2002. Now here's why this is so important. Okay, we're going to take the same 15-year period and invert the sequence of returns. Right? In other words, the negative 9% that happened in year 1 is going to be in year 15. The negative 11% that happened in year 2 is going to be in year 14, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, now if we take the same $1 million starting point and invert the same sequence of returns, you'll end up with the exact same ending point. So the point is, it doesn't matter which order the returns come in, the average return is going to be the same, which means the end result is going to be the same. Okay, here's the same thing on a graph, a $1 million starting point, and if you invert the sequence of returns, you end up with the same ending point. But we're talking about retirement planning here. So the real question is, does the sequence of returns change the ending point when you start taking retirement income drawdowns? In other words, once you start pulling retirement income out of your retirement account, does the order in which these same returns recur change the end result, even though the average returns are the same? Now we're going to use an example of taking out $60,000 annual income drawdowns from the retirement account to see what happens. So here's the same 15-year sequence we just looked at, 2000 through 2014. Okay, so same $1 million starting point, but after pulling out the $60,000 per year in retirement income, the account runs out of money in year 13. So the income stops and there's zero account balance. Now the reason this happens is because you got hit with 3 years in a row of losses in the beginning of that 15-year period versus the end of the 15-year period. So your account is getting hit with losses and it's getting drained of that $60,000 of income every year at the same time. And when that happens too early in the sequence of returns, the account balance plummets, which is why it runs out of money in the 13th year. Now, versus the example where the sequence of returns are inverted, again, this is the same set of returns as the first scenario, but in the reversed order. So the first few years start out with positive back-to-back returns, and the negative back-to-back returns happens at the end. Now in this scenario, the $60,000 of income lasts for 15 years instead of only 13 years. And even after 15 years of pulling out $60,000 per year in income, it still has an ending account balance of $530,000. Now that's the equivalent of 8.8 additional years of that $60,000 annual income. Now that's 9 years of additional income, and that's assuming you don't earn any interest during those additional years you're pulling that $60,000 of income out. I mean, that's a $687,000 difference. So the point is to show you that most people can't afford to have their retirement income just run out simply because of a few bad years in the market during the beginning stages of their retirement. So the question really becomes, are you willing to risk running out of money during your retirement years due to just a few bad years in the beginning years of your retirement? If not, there is another option that might be a better fit for you. So let's take a look. This option protects you against those down markets, especially in the early years of a person's retirement, when they're drawing down an income from their retirement account. Now it has a 0% protective floor, and I'll explain how this works in comparison to a standard retirement account. Okay, here's the same sequence of returns we just looked at. Again, this is from the year 2000 through 2014. Now here's that same 15-year sequence from 2000 to 2014, but this option gives you a 0% floor and a 3.75% cap. Now what this means is that when the market's up, the maximum you can get is 3.75% return in that year. But if the market's down, you won't lose any money whatsoever. Now let me show you what this looks like. Now, take the first year in the sequence. In the year 2000, the market took a 9% loss. So if you were in the product with a 0% floor, you would have lost nothing in that particular year. Now in addition, in the traditional retirement account, you'd also have to pay investment fees. Now, the standard investment fee, all in, the national average is 2.65%. And that fee comes right out of your return, even if you lost money in that particular year. Now, did you know that you still have to pay the investment fee in a 401k or an IRA, even in the years where you lost money? And for a lot of people, that was never explained to them. Now, that's one of the advantages of this other account on the right side of the screen. Okay, it's an indexed fund, so there's no investment fee. It's called an indexed annuity, and I'll show you what happens over time compared to the standard retirement account on the left side of the screen. Again, a standard retirement account could be a 401k or an IRA, for example. Okay, so the net return in the traditional retirement account on the left side of the screen in the first year would have been negative 11.75%. Whereas in the indexed annuity on the right side of the screen, you would have lost zero in that year. Again, that's the power of the 0% protective floor. So after the net returns in that year, here's what happens to your account in both scenarios. Okay, and here's where we're pulling out $60,000 per year in retirement income from both scenarios. And here's where your account balance ends up after that year's returns and after pulling out $60,000 in retirement income. Okay, so that's what happens when the market's down. Now, when the market's up, here's what happens. So take 2003. The market was up 28.68%. So in the indexed annuity, you'd only get the maximum cap, which is 3.75% in this case. Now, in the traditional investment account, they're going to subtract that investment fee of 2.65%. Whereas there's no investment fee in the indexed annuity. So the net after-tax return on the left in the traditional retirement account is 26.03% versus 3.75% on the right side. So after the returns in that year, here's what happens to your account value in both scenarios. Now remember, we're pulling out $60,000 per year in retirement income every year in both scenarios also. So here's where your account balance ends up after that year's returns and after pulling out the $60,000 in retirement income. So we see here, your account value runs out of money in year 13 in the traditional retirement account, which means the income stops too. So over the course of 15 years, the traditional retirement account only produced $743,000 of income, versus the indexed annuity produced $900,000 of retirement income. Okay, that's $156,000 in additional retirement income, right? Big difference. Plus with the indexed annuity, there's still an account balance of over $346,000 after the 15th year. Now add both of those up, and that's a $502,000 difference. I mean, that's pretty substantial. So here it is on a graph. Again, we see the traditional retirement account run out of income in the 13th year versus the index annuity lasting the full 15 years of income, plus having an ending account balance of $346,000. Again, in both of those scenarios, we were using the time period between the years of 2000 and 2014. Now, if we invert the sequence of those returns and we start off with the market being up instead of the market being down, here's what happens in the indexed annuity. The indexed annuity, $60,000 of income, also lasts 15 years, and it ends up with an account balance of over $428,000. And in that same sequence of inverted returns, the traditional retirement account, $60,000 annual income, lasts for 15 years too, and it ends with an account balance of over $530,000. And just to put it in perspective, in regards to retirement planning, if you never earned a dime of interest past that period of 15 years, and you continued to pull out $60,000 per year in income, the traditional account would give you $60,000 of income for 23 years if the sequence of returns started out with those positive years in the beginning. The indexed annuity would give you that income for 22 years, but even if the market started off with negative years in the beginning, the indexed annuity would still give you 20 years of that $60,000 of annual income. Versus the traditional retirement account would only last 13 years. Again, huge difference. So the question is it worth to give up just 1 year of income, assuming the market starts off up, versus losing over 50% of the income years with the traditional retirement account if the market starts off down? Now, the risk is huge if the sequence of returns starts off with negative years in the very beginning. But if the sequence of returns starts off with positive years in the beginning, the potential additional gain in the traditional retirement plan is negligible at only 1 year of difference of income. I mean, the risk just isn't worth it relative to such a negligible gain. So the point of showing you these numbers is to really take into consideration how much risk you're willing to take on in terms of running out of money during your retirement versus how much income you're really giving up. As we see in this historical scenario, again, during the years of 2000 through 2014, because of the 3 years of negative returns in the early stages of that 15-year period, the account runs out of money in year 13 versus extending that $60,000 a year income out to 20 or 22 years. So in summary, most people cannot afford to run out of that income during their retirement years simply because of a few negative returns early on in their retirement years. So for someone that cannot afford to run out of money during their retirement years, the index annuity could be a perfect play for that type of client.